Hey everyone, it's Chaos World here, and it is story time. So these are the Mandez sisters, and all of them are all here. Um, and I just wanted to, I have all the sisters collected. They do have some brothers, but I just don't have them in doll form. I don't think I will show them in doll form because they're not really relevant story-wise, so there's no point. But I did want to just share because I thought it'd be a little bit of fun how this family came to be. And you guys let me know if you like a little bit of these story times or not. So just a disclaimer, I'm going to be referencing their mom and dad as Mr. and Mrs. Mandez because they don't have names. So, and it'd be easier for no confusion. Okay, so at 16 years old, Miss Mandez, her heritage or background is Jamaican, just an FYI. Her family heads to Mexico for the summer on vacation. During that summer, she meets Mr. Mandez, and they have a fling. Summer ends, and the two keep in touch via the internet and letters. They did occasionally call, but international calling is a bit expensive. So, 3 months later is when Miss Mandez realized they've made a huge mistake. There's been an accident. She was pregnant. Her family and Mr. Mandez, of course, was not happy about this because she's 16. And she decided to keep the baby, and by age 17, Raul Jared Mandez was born, so their older brother. Miss Mandez and Mr. Mandez planned to get Mr. Mandez himself to Canada so he could be with his family. However, it's a long process and he would need a sponsor to come over. So they decided to wait until Miss Mandez graduated and got a full job so she could start the process. So in the meantime, her family helped her fund yearly visits to visit. Her family helped fund yearly visits so Raul could see his father. When Raul was 2 and Miss Mandez was about to graduate, a month after her visit to Mexico, she felt weird but didn't think much of it. Miss Mandez started her first full-time job and worked away, though it was tough being a single mom who was becoming increasingly sick. Miss Mandez was suspicious of being pregnant, but at 4 months she had no belly. So nonetheless, she saved up, and in the 9th month, she went to Mexico despite precautions because she was like, maybe I am pregnant and you're not supposed to fly when you're in the late stages of pregnancy, but she went anyway. She went to see Mr. Mandez, and a week into the visit, Charlotte Mandez was born. There you go, Charles. They didn't know what to do. Miss Mandez couldn't let her family know because they were already suspicious that she was pregnant, and having her first baby didn't go very well. So Miss Mandez barely had a bump, and she wore coats in the last trimester. It's Canada, it's cold, she could get away with it. So her and Mr. Mandez devised a new plan. They got married in Mexico, and with reluctance, Miss Mandez left her newborn, Charles, and Raul, the 2-year-old, with Mr. Mandez and his family while she focused on college and getting her family into Canada. Her parents paid for her schooling while she worried about the other stuff. 3 years and many visits later, Mr. Mandez and his children were in Canada. Hooray! They were all so happy. They had their own place, and they were finally together. A year of bliss passed, and Mr. Mandez finished a quick program at college, thanks to the help of his family sending money, just to discover Miss Mandez was pregnant. Again. But this time with twins. They were joyful at this time, and before they knew it, the arrival of Romeo and Rosalina right there. Rosalina Mandez happened. That's when things became hectic. So, Miss Mandez took mat leave for the first time, and Mr. Mandez had a hard time taking care of things while she focused on the twins. So he confided his troubles into a friend, a female friend at that. Over the course of the year, Mr. Mandez and his friend, their relationship started to become romantic. He got a pep in his step again, started to do better at home and at work. However, it didn't last. Mr. Mandez didn't want a future with this friend and broke things off. The friend was furious. She dialed up his wife and told all. Miss Mandez was angry, livid. That's an understatement, how she was. She had 1-year-old twins, a 4-year-old, and a 6-year-old. She had worked day in and day out to bring this man to Canada and reunite her family, and he does this in return. To make matters worse, the friend showed up at dinner that same day she called to show her new baby bump. And it wasn't really new. She was a bit far along, but she hadn't said anything. Anyways, the shocked Mr. Mandez was thrown out, of course, and Miss Mandez was just shattered. Raul helped her pick up her own pieces. Meanwhile, Mr. Mandez was living with the friend, and it wasn't long until Julia Mandez was born. Mr. Mandez yearned for his kids and his wife, his old life. She was gracious enough to let him visit his kids at a public place. Through Raul, he discovered that Miss Mandez was dating someone new. What he didn't know was Miss Mandez was just trying to fill the hole in her heart with something, anything, or rather, with someone. Her new boyfriend was handsome, a wealthy Nigerian man with warm eyes and a stunning smile. He was oblivious to Miss Mandez's home life, her kids, her husband, etc. Miss Mandez was a fantastic actor, and she pretended to be free of responsibilities and to be a single lady. The boyfriend was a side hobby for Miss Mandez, something to do when the kids were at grandma's and she was done with housework. For the boyfriend, he had fallen very hard for Miss Mandez and wanted a future with her. It had only been a year, but it was enough for him, and he planned to propose. The poor man didn't know that he couldn't make Miss Mandez truly smile, the type of smile that made her eyes shine and dimples appear. He didn't know that every day Mr. Mandez whispered sweet words to her through the phone, whether she snubbed him or not, desperately trying to get her back. Mr. Mandez tried and tried and tried. He plucked Miss Mandez right out from the boyfriend's arms without him knowing. Mr. Mandez left Julia's mom, not without hearing an angry protest, but was released with the terms of child support, which will be paid, and he'd be in the child's life. Mr. Mandez was home again, and Miss Mandez had no need for the boyfriend, so she bluntly cut it off, wounding him with the blow and throwing him into depression. Miss Mandez did not care about the boyfriend at all and his feelings until she discovered she was with child yet again. She told Mr. Mandez first, who said that they could raise it, but she didn't want it. She texted the ex-boyfriend the news, and he sent question after question, which she ignored. She ignored his excitement, she ignored his bargaining, and ignored his virtual cries. She was silent until the 9th month. She hid her pregnancy easily, as she did once before, and the day the 9th month started, she took a leave to Mexico, air quotes. She told her work her dad had died. She texted the ex-boyfriend, "You still live at the same place?" To which he replied yes immediately. "I'm coming," is all she said. Minutes before knocking on his door, he let her in. Before she knew it, 20 minutes later, she was knocking on his door after the text. He let her in with teary eyes. He had never stopped begging for her to return, and there she was. She let him fawn over her, rub her feet, think of baby names, make a nursery. She let him do whatever his heart desired. He was such a good man. 3 days late, labor started. Late past her due date, of course. Labor started, and she had a quick delivery. Aaliyah Aparo was born. There she is, Aaliyah. Miss Mandez refused skin to skin, she refused to breastfeed, and she refused to hold her. Everyone thought immediately postpartum depression. The ex-boyfriend made sure to listen closely as the nurses taught him the ropes. Miss Mandez wouldn't try. With a prescription of meds, they were discharged. Miss Mandez ordered a cab when the ex-boyfriend had a car. She said the words, "She's yours now," and left in the cab. The ex-boyfriend was too upset to drive home. As his tears fell on his newborn's face, he decided it would be the last of the tears he shed for that woman. His sadness turned to bitterness, and his love became hate. He quietly raised his daughter motherless and taught her to hate the one who abandoned her. However, Aaliyah's curiosity was stronger than hate, and so she set out to find her mother at age 17, but instead discovered her siblings. And that is it. So that is the story of how the Mandez children came to be and the mini history. And just giving also an insight as to what their parents are like. At least Mr. and Mrs. Mandez are like. And also, if you read photo stories, this gives a little insight, because Rosalina and Charles did have a discussion about how their parents were putting too much expectation / giving up on them and other stuff. So that gives a little background in what their parents had, their circumstances for them to be born, and maybe a little bit of insight as why they were so expectant of their kids. Okay, anyways, thanks for tuning in for this little story time, and I hope you enjoyed. Until next time, bye.